And tell us how you, then when you decided this is the day I'm going to go to America, or this is the day I'm going to leave.
Well, I just had a little bag with me with one pair of stocking and a panty in my handbag and as much as money, maybe 1,000 forints, which is nothing really. Whatever I had, I packed and went to my cousin Grete because we talked on the phone. My mother and father was only had a party line. People couldn't have their own phones. So anyway, we talked, and Grete said yes, he wants to leave, even though she was married, but the husband was unfaithful to her, and she had somebody whom she loved, who was waiting for her, which I didn't even know at the time. So anyway, we decided one day that I was going to her. She lived in Dohain Street, where the big synagogue is. Right beside the synagogue, she lived in a big building. So I went there and just called my mother and father on the phone and told them that I was leaving and I'm saying goodbye. And I'm going to try to help them. And I don't even think I talked to Peters, my father and mother. And they didn't discourage me at that point. Maybe they were shocked, I don't know. And we just took the train with Grete. And they were checking the train for some people who want to leave the country, because the radio was showing that every day 1,000 young people left the country, or how many people left the country on that night. And I don't know if it's the police or some government people were checking the train for people. Why are they on the train? Before we left, I went to my place of work and had a paper that I'm sent as an export-import inspector very close to the border, to the Austrian border in Hungary, where I went before, where they made bauxite and they exported it to take samples and test it in the laboratory. And I was supposed to put my stamp on it. So I had a paper to show, and Grete had some relatives, or very good friends rather, on her lover's side, who lived very close also to the border. And she was saying that she's going to go to them because they are going to kill a pig and it's going to be a big feast. And she's invited. Now I have to tell you that it just so happened that the train up to a certain city went and stopped, and it was a railway strike, and we had to go to the hotel, and we hardly could get a room in a hotel for overnight. And then we didn't even know how we are going to get any further. And next day, also we were checked during the night by the police, and I showed my letter, and that was fine, my inspector ID, and that they accepted that. And Grete just didn't have any paper. She just showed her ID, and she said about this feast that she's going. So she was supposed to next day go to the police station, and they were going to call these people where she's going to go to check her out. Now that was the big excitement, that we both went to the police station. I was staying outside behind a bush to wait for her. And for quite a while she was in the station. And later on, when she came out, she was telling me that they called them. And luckily, because they didn't have any communication before, so they didn't know Grete was coming, but they were very smart and good to her and said, yes, they are going to kill the pig, it's true, and it's going to be a big feast, and Grete is welcome. Grete is invited. So then we didn't know how we are going to go any further. So, okay, the police is okay, that was over. And then all of a sudden, as we were walking out of the police station, I see this big bus, and people are standing in line taking the bus. So I started to ask people, what is this bus? Where is it going? And they said it's going to go very near the border. We are all leaving the country. But they also said this was organized right from Budapest, and they had to pay already ahead of time to get on the bus. So I thought, what can we lose? Get on the bus. So as we were sitting already on the bus, of course, somebody came and asked us who we are. And I just gave all my money to this person, and Grete also gave money. And so when we arrived, we had nothing left. We arrived at a very small village. We are still in Hungary, within the border, and there was this farmhouse. This was all organized. There was a farmer who took us in his basement for overnight, and he said that it has to be dark when we can just leave. And he's going to come with us, show us where to cross the border. And okay, so we started walking. I never was able to I was going to buy a pair of shoes because the shoes was coming off me. I had a piece of rope around my shoes to fasten to my leg because it was melting snow, and I almost lost a shoe, as I was walking. And so we walked, and I remember that I was sweating. The sweat was just dripping off me, even though it was so cold, but I was worried. And there was this big haystack, and the farmer said, now, it was a group of like 15, 20 people, and he left us at the haystack. He said, this is a no man's land, this haystack, and the ambulance is going to come from Austria to pick you up. And he left us, he walked away. And this is also when I was very worried that he could have been a spy of some sort and give us, let the government know that we are here. And, I wasn't sure at all about this ambulance story. I'm here nowhere. Meanwhile, a man got a heart attack in the group, and the whole family had to go back, started walking. Not to mention that I heard rifles from the background. So here we are, standing there at a haystack, waiting. You know what? The ambulance came, picked us up, took us to Andau. There is a book, The Bridge of Andau. I read it. So anyway, Grete and I was taken to a barn where there were hay. Now for the animals, hay, you call it. Yeah, and we were lying like sardines. And there came a reporter, American, and asked, who is speaking English? I want an interview. How did you come through? Who did you leave behind? And here I put up my hand, and said, yes, I speak English. It was the hardest thing in my life. I found out that it was difficult. To begin with, I really didn't want to say everything because I worried about my family, whom I left behind. So I said part of the story, how hard it was, and the farmer, and how I came and who I was. But that was my first time when I had to speak English. And it turned out that my English was British English and not American English. So many expressions are different. Anyway, we were able to get extra clothing, some clothing, and Grete was very smart. Grete said, you know, we got food and we were treated well, but we were at nowhere. The embassy was in Vienna. Grete said, we have to get to Vienna. I said, but they looked at the ID, and now we belong to this group. How are we going to just go off the group? Will it be okay? You know, I worried a little bit. She said, no. And she was smart. She said, we have to get to the Vienna. We have to get to the station and get on the train to go to Vienna. That's the only way to go to the American embassy. So, but we didn't have money to get on the train. No money for the train. And we had no idea how much is the train, how much it cost. So Grete had a golden necklace. She took it off and went from house to house. She knew a little German. Maybe it was Yiddish, who knows. Anyway, to try to sell the golden necklace that we could get on. Okay, so she managed to sell it. We got on the train. We get to Vienna. And here we were nowhere in Vienna, on the street. And it was the afternoon. I said, so where are we going to sleep? What's going to happen? We are on the street in Vienna. We started just walking and thinking. And Grete said, we have to get to the police station to say that we are refugees from Hungary. We need help. So I stopped at the police and we talked and we got to the police station and they took us back to the railway station. There was a railway just for refugees, diner car, and it was set up for double beds. How do you call those double beds? Grete was up on the bottom. We were living there for a while. It's just that it was a lot of worry because sometimes they had to move the train because other trains were coming and they had to go to another part of the station. And every time they moved, I worried that we go somewhere back or where are we going. And then they told me they just have to move the train. It doesn't mean it's going somewhere. Then Grete made friends with a man on the train who wanted to go back to Hungary. And Grete got really friendly with him, and they decided that they go back to the Hungarian embassy and ask for amnesty. And that's what happened. Grete just left me there. She said goodbye. She just changed her mind. And I don't know how it happened, really, that I left that train. Yeah, I got sick also, and I needed medication, and got a very bad cold, and whisk vapor rub, I remember. Anyway, when I got better, I went to the joint. It's a American Jewish organization who helped refugees. There was a big line for clothing